Good morning, welcome back, and happy holidays. This is the Broadcast Retirement Network, and this is BRN AM for Monday, December 23rd, 2019. And here are our top stories. Retirement is now secure, but what are people saying about the Secure Act online? And California's diversity law goes into effect January 1st, 2020, and we'll have the latest. Well, it's Social Media Monday, and that means a look at all the news in retirement, personal finance, and so much more, and what the reaction is online. And joining us now, Senior Financial Services Editor from LinkedIn, Devin Banerjee. Hey, Devin, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Doing great, and we're coming down the home stretch to not only the holidays, but also the new year. So the decade is coming to a close, and we're starting a new decade.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And here at LinkedIn, we're looking at a lot of the conversations that were trending the most and really sparked conversation this year. And as I told you a couple of days ago, I'm personally learning a lot.
Yeah, I can tell you, I go through the feed regularly. There's so much that I envy you, actually, because in a lot of ways, but I envy you because you get to pull from a great amount of resources. You have 600 and some odd million people of whom are contributing. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So one conversation that's really back in the news that we had a great volume of people talking about earlier this year is the Secure Act. I'm very proud I've memorized the name, the Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act. So as you know, Jeff, as you excitedly texted me last week, this is back in the news because it was attached to the year-end spending bill that is through the House and I think through the Senate perhaps, and possibly heading toward President Trump's desk for signing. So this, as you know, introduces some of the most sweeping changes to the retirement plan system here in the US. So some of those changes, to recap some of the top changes that would be put in place. Required minimum distributions from retirement accounts would rise to age 72. It's currently at age 70 and a half. So people can push off that tax event if they would like. People will be able to contribute to their traditional IRA past the age of 70 and a half. We saw some folks on LinkedIn really applauding that because of this trend that we talk about a lot, which is people working longer because they need to work longer. It does eliminate this concept of the stretch IRA. So those are, retirement accounts that are sort of passed down and inherited. Currently, those who inherit them could take the distributions through the course of their life. That will change to require them to take the distribution in the course of 10 years. So a bunch of other options. I'm going to focus on two, though, that we really saw passionate conversation around. The first is that small and medium-sized businesses, which historically have found it difficult to administer these plans because of costs and time that it takes to set up the plan and negotiate funds and fees, fund lineups and fees and all of that. It will become easier for them to actually band together and create multiple employer plans. They can share that administrative burden, they can share those costs and still provide retirement plans to their employees. Related to that, part-time employees, so those who work at least 500 hours a year for 3 consecutive years. So if you think about this gig economy that has really risen up of people who work several different part-time jobs or who are called contractors for different internet or tech-driven companies, they now will also have access, those who meet those requirements I just mentioned will have access to retirement accounts offered by those employers. So we saw a lot of great conversation around that. Again, SMBs, small and medium-sized business owners and operators talking about those benefits, gig economy workers talking about those benefits. And the other topic is around annuities. So employers will have some liability taken off of their shoulders for offering annuities in these plans. Big win for the insurance industry. And initially, kind of the gut reaction and some of the media reaction has been, annuities, aren't those, the salesman who just wants to make the commission and doesn't care about what happens, what the annuity product is about. So yes, that happens a lot. There are opaque, high-cost annuities, but there was a real intriguing, insightful, nuanced conversation that I saw on the platform, coming from some financial advisors and also some elderly folks who actually have researched annuities. And that conversation was about this concept of guaranteed income that simple, immediate annuities can offer is actually very powerful for those approaching retirement or those in retirement. Mostly powerful around the idea of peace of mind and knowing that, income is guaranteed annually for the contract that's agreed to. So I saw a lot of financial advisors come out and say, look, transparent, those immediate annuities versus deferred ones and some other flavors. A lot of them are saying those are okay when well researched and when well understood, and when the costs are transparent. As I said, they could be valuable. So I really enjoyed that nuanced conversation as well.
Yeah, I think just to follow up on that, I think annuities have really come full circle and have evolved since I was a lot younger and first got into the business. And people do have some negative connotations, but yeah, I mean, they're not for everybody, or they're not for 100% of your balance, particularly. But it's one of those things where you have to evaluate when you're thinking about retirement income. Peace of mind, do you annuitize, do you not annuitize, do you do a portion of your balance? So I think that is something that always should be revisited and thought through, especially when you're consulting with a financial advisor. All options should be on the table. And what I really liked about this, and I wonder if this was a sentiment on the platform, was this is like the only issue that is bipartisan, in the whole country, that we can all agree that people need to save more. And I thought that was amazing. Maybe that's a first step to coming together instead of pulling each other apart. And we need to get people saving because we can't just rely on Social Security. I mean, there has to be some level of responsibility. And this looks like it opens up the window, though the MEP creation will be a couple years off because there's a lot of regulatory things that happen. But generally, I'm pretty excited, and I get the sense from you that the majority of people were excited as well.
Yeah, it's one of those rare kind of government policy news items we featured where the majority of people were applauding these changes and these ideas. And I don't think that's getting enough attention. What you mentioned, the real bipartisan nature of it. And there are actually a couple more, there's so many provisions, but a few that I also found interesting that I didn't mention yet. Auto enrollment limits are increased. Companies can now auto enroll employees for up to 15% of their income versus the current 10. Obviously, employees can still opt out. The 10% penalty, early withdrawal penalty, is now waived for baby and adoption costs in the first year after a baby is born. So that's up to $10,000 for a married couple or $5,000 for an individual. Also, the use of 529, education savings money has been expanded. The use of that has been expanded. People can take tax-free withdrawals of up to $10,000 for repayment of some student loans, which has been a real, severe crisis in the U.S. So many of these provisions, and honestly, all of them, like you read through them and you think, wow, that's actually a great idea.
Yeah, it's like, why not sooner? One thing that, this is not part of the Secure Act, but I believe that, we talk on the program about pensions, and there have been some challenges with Central States and the coal miners' pensions. I believe that there was some kind of funding or support there so that those benefits would not have to be cut as well. That was a real big issue for people in West Virginia, Kentucky, and some of those coal-producing areas of the country. So that is another key piece. So it looks like, from my perspective, retirement is a big winner. Saving for retirement, all these other financial planning, big winner, which I think means all Americans win.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to your point, defined benefit or pension plans are also in need of a close look in terms of policy. And so I'm glad that's happening as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that PBGC, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, which backstops a lot of these corporate and multi-employer pensions, needs some help because they can't backstop everything. So a lot of work to be done there. So it's not over in terms of the work that has to be done. I think it's a great start. Obviously, the first time since the Pension Protection Act, and the real significant change since the passage of AITRA in 2001. So good work, and glad to see the mostly positive comments. But you know what? Those negative comments or constructive feedback comments are very important as well. and policymakers should be paying attention, and as well as those in the industry. Well, Devin, I'm going to hold you over, and when we come back, board makeups are changing, and they're changing in California to start. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. 2020 is right around the corner, and that means that there are new laws coming on the books. We already talked about the Secure Act, but what about California's new board diversity law? Devin Banerjee, Senior Financial Services Editor for LinkedIn, is still with us. Devin, I know a lot of our conversations over the past several months have been around diversity and the benefits of having men, women of all different types on boards and leadership. What can you tell us? I think there's a new law that becomes effective in California about boards. What's the latest there?
That's right, Jeff. So about a year ago, some big news was made. California became the first state in the union, in the U.S., to legally compel public companies to have board diversity in terms of gender, so to have at least a female director. That actually goes into effect in the coming weeks, the end of 2019. And companies that don't comply actually face a one-time fee of $100,000. So, and that fee increases actually by the end of 2021 if companies don't have even more diversity. And so what's been really interesting, the New York Times did a great story about companies effectively rushing to the finish line here and how that's changing the traditional concept of serving on boards and what qualifies one to be a director of a company. So the Times reports about 30 to 60 companies, this was reported last week, have still not found or at least named that female director. So they're approaching that point where they will be fined. Of course, things are still very fast moving. We're seeing several companies naming new directors who are women actually just in the past recent days. A lot of those companies that have not done so yet are younger companies, especially in high tech or biotech, a lot of them having small boards, small market caps. And it can actually be expensive, to add directors. Directors are paid mostly at public companies, an average of actually $180,000 a year. It's not a bad gig.
That's a job.
Get it?
That's a job. That's pretty good. I'll take that.
Exactly. And if you think about it, that's more expensive than this fine that some companies would face of $100,000. Also cost of travel, et cetera. But what's really interesting is that, there's this perpetuating bias where when companies are looking for directors, they're oftentimes looking for people who already have previous director experience or previous CEO experience, really. And if you think about it, historically, those have been men. So it has perpetuated this cycle. And so a lot of recruiters, executive recruiters, and advisors quoted in the story are talking about how this whole concept of serving on a board is changing. People are looking for possible directors who have served on nonprofit boards, for example, not just on public company boards, or even school boards, or maybe they've presented to their own company board because they're a functional leader within a company or a subject matter expert within a company. Another trend that's emerging is board roles are being perceived more as kind of functional roles, as I just mentioned. So not every director, should have all a wide range of experience or all types of management or leadership experience, but maybe a board, the entire makeup of a board composes people with expertise in technology, for example, expertise in human capital or HR, for example, or expertise in strategy and expertise in FP&A and finance and accounting. And so that really gives a leg up to some of those people, diverse people who have not been CEOs, have not been directors, but as I said, are true subject matter experts in different areas. That dovetails. I can already sense your question. This dovetails with the story we've talked about.
You know me too well, Devin.
About different paths to management. Well, this is different paths to the boardroom now, where functional roles and specific skills, as I said, around diversity and inclusion, or strategy, or accounting, or finance, or all these other different functional roles can actually fast track you to both the C-suite and to the boardroom.
Yeah, you addressed my question, and it's just more of a rhetorical comment or a comment in general. And it's like, I truly believe that a diverse workforce of people, whether it's men, female, whatever, what have you. I'm not going to go through the list. You also need diverse skill sets. And why do you need to have? I mean, we've talked on this program and in other venues about people of all different makeups adding value and the importance of having diverse teams. And it just seemed to me that, yes, having experience as a board member seems to be important, but is it always important? And why wouldn't some fresh thinking and maybe inventing, someone who doesn't have that preconceived or pre-experience might actually enliven things up a little bit? I mean, there are certain parameters, you have to understand, obviously, making sure that you keep secrets and company trade secrets in safe and other things. But I got to think that if you get to a certain level, you can bring value regardless of if you truly have board experience. Just my 2 cents.
Interesting conversation emerging out of this, which is, we know, so many people know this to be true, and so much research has been done kind of proving this out. But without kind of a law in place, or dare I use the word, even a quota in place, which, by the way, so many countries, especially in Europe, Norway was the first to do it, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, all have some form of diversity quotas now for corporate governance. So that conversation has really started again, which is maybe that's the way just to get this going, get the ball rolling, expand the pool of candidates here, expand the pool of people of diverse people with C-suite experience or board experience, whichever quota you're talking about. And then there may be some self-powering positive feedback loop that carries that forward, and maybe quotas are less necessary in the future. But maybe a quota or a law like this, California passed it, is necessary as the first step.
Well, there's something in the National Football League called the Rooney Rule, and it was passed by the former owner, the now deceased owner of the Steelers, and that it means that they have to go out and look at minority candidates as well, or first, or some number, and so there is precedent for that. And again, if I'm making up a team, and that's what a board is, that's what a organization is a team of people. I personally want the most diverse group. I want people who can help get the company, the organization to the finish line, and so I'm willing to work with anybody who can help lend. I don't really vet that kind of stuff at all. So I think that's very important, and I think there's precedent there. And I think California often is on the progressive side of things. But I'm wondering, Devin, if there's opportunity for other states to follow suit.
Yeah, I think we've heard this conversation brought to different state capitals already, some of the more progressive states. So I'm not sure if any have actually made progress or taken steps toward this, but I certainly anticipate there will be. And I think, as California starts and we start seeing the success of some of these companies and performance and strategic initiatives that come out of these boardrooms, I think, and candidly, I do hope that others take up the mantle as well.
Yeah, I mean, success breeds success, and I think that ultimately Makes the most sense. Well, Devin, it's always a pleasure seeing you. And I know we're coming up on the holidays, so I want to wish you and your family the very best for a great holiday. And we'll see you later in the week on the podcast and back on the network. But take care of yourself. Enjoy some time off. Get that sleep that we talked about yesterday on the podcast, and that's important. And rest up, because I know 2020 is going to have you going around the globe. Maybe your CEO will send you to the International Space Station this time. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Take care of yourself and your family as well.
Thanks, bud. And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Hope you enjoyed it. And a special note to let you all know that we're taking a little bit of a break this week. Tomorrow and Thursday we'll have best of episodes. Wednesday will be completely off and dark and relaxing with families. And then Friday we're back at it again with a fresh new episode of BRN AM. Until then, you can always check out the latest news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, and so much more. Check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until Friday, I'm Jeff Snyder. Keep on saving. Have a great holiday. And don't forget, roll with the changes.